Good morning. Test, test. Hi. Away? We learned that on Sunday. So thank you for being on time. This is what we promised, right? To get things started because you're early, we're early. Everybody's happy. How was the reception last night? Did you enjoy that? Oh, thank you. Thank you. How was how was the whole Congress yesterday? Did you enjoy that? Oh, that's a little better. Okay. Well, guess what? There are more for you, right? In store for you to join, to enjoy. Um, we are trying still to play with a few things, and therefore we would get ready soon. But we have. Oh yeah, I meant to say this. Usually what I have to do really is about, housekeeping item. So it was brought to my attention that that door keeps locking on you. So we fixed it. Thank you for that. We fixed it. Okay, so you will never be locked out. You'll never be locked in. So, and that should work for all rooms. So I think what we need to do is, again, keep up the energy. It's always a bit exhausting to go to conferences. But is this the first conference for some of you since the COVID? Yes? Yeah. How does it feel to be back in the Congress again? Yeah? Happy? Good. What is COVID? This doesn't, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to spell it. The only thing I know is that I couldn't go anywhere for a while, which was a good thing, right? We wanted to actually surprise Moniba with something today. Moniba's been working very hard to put this conference together, right? And especially with the work that he's been doing, and not just for the conference, of course, but to really work with small-scale fisheries in South Africa. And I know that Moniba also works with, groups and teams in Tanzania and other places. So for somebody like Moniba to be able to do this much speaks so much, right, to that whole spirit of the conference about leading by examples. Mhm. So good examples are you don't sleep, you don't rest, but actually Maniba juggles, right? A lot of, family, work, activism, lots of things. So how could that be possible, right, for someone to do that? So we're learning a lot, and I think we have been very inspired by many of these, people are presenting here, and then, just sharing the examples and experience, right? So today it will be two plenary in the morning, two plenary sessions. The first one is about to happen. Once I stop talking, that would be when we bring the first plenary of today. It's going to be focusing on climate friendly food system. So you can imagine, right? What could that be? There are a lot of examples of that. There's a lot of the other example too, not too friendly, producing food that doesn't, look at the system. That means not everybody is able to access the food, or the food is actually being distributed unequally. Mhm. And the techniques of food production, including the whole value chain, the post-harvest and the marketing, may not be as friendly to the environment. So that is a topic of the first plenary for today. And then we go, after the break, we go into the second plenary, which will be about business and social innovation. So there will be a bit of follow-up from yesterday's forum of the policy people. People wanted to show us, right, what they do to invest in small-scale fisheries, in the business, and the different social innovation. So in the afternoon, there will be two concurrent sessions, again in 4 different rooms, as you've done it. So breaks would be also in front of each room, so you don't need to run back and forth. And when we finish the 2 concurrent sessions, we would then come back to another forum. This time will be Future Leaders Forum. So if you look at a program, you may be wondering, who are those people that would be, doing the panelist for the Future Leader Forum? And I tell you who they are. They are people who I basically happen to know about their work and think that they should be able to share with us their stories. But there's still a lot of you out there who I don't know enough yet about your work. So the final plenary is actually, we would have a few people get us started, like a warm-up people, right? And then I'll turn to you to share the story about how you see the future of small-scale fisheries, what you do in your role as leaders in this space. So be ready to do that at the very final forum. So today, we are ready to, it says a surprise for Muniba is ready. Let's get it going. Thank you.
I want to welcome you all to today.
We are very flexible in our program because it's a celebration.
You were welcomed with the smell of mpeku, which is our local mountain sage. You will currently see it growing on the mountains here.
If you're touching nature, you're touching yourself. If you're destroying nature, you're destroying yourself. So when we say aware, we acknowledge one another.
And we learn from our forefathers how to fish and to use fishing as an instrument to provide for our communities. Our plea for free access 24/7 a week, day and night, 12 months a year, are falling on dead ends.
And then you can see by yourself, understanding the knowledge of our people, even before the introduction of new methods and understandings that they had in their minds the issue of sustainability.
And to be the first one and the only woman to make a career out of it, to provide for your family as a female, to provide for your household. It's not easy. My journey was to change the mindset of the man, the fisherman.
So people, the only way to overcome all this struggle is to come together and speak out of one voice. That is the only method. Power to the people. While you and I are being killed, we don't fight most, we are just fishing. We just want food to eat.
The table you see here is because when it is bad weather, there's no income for a woman of a household to keep food on the table.
We are known as the river sen. We stay along the river, so fish is one of our livelihood activities.
The film that you are about to see was made by Paul Onyango, who was a professor at University of Dar es Salaam. He passed away this year, and you will hear that they make the distinction between what they call visible absences and invisible presences.
Probably
very quickly to the story because I enjoyed the story more than anyone else here because it's from Tanzania, along Lake Victoria in Mwanza region.
I know Onyango, the one who is here. So there is now a struggle on market. The struggle now is in market because the prime fish with good meat is going for export, and we are dealing with small fish around for it.
Qui était une organisation autonome qui maintenant faisait face au gouvernement pour commencer à dire au gouvernement voilà ce qui ne nous plaît pas dans la gestion des pêches.
Les textes juridiques de la loi de la pêche sont aussi en cours de révision et ça suit à la pression continue de la société civile.
Presque tous les pays de l'Afrique où j'étais en Tanzanie la dernière fois, il y a le problème du changement climatique, où les femmes n'ont même pas leur matière première.
Everyone is talking about many protocols, and all these protocols are not gender sensitive.
And I'm the youth representative for All Fishland, so I just wanted to talk about the youth involvement in fisheries.
We have a lot of different fisher pools in the country, but we are all moving from different ends. We need a collective voice to be able to come together to challenge our authorities so that our livelihood is also realized.
The challenges are similar. Access to affordable credit, aggregation is a problem, climate change is a challenge, policy and regulatory framework. As we are thinking about the challenges, we are the solutions. It's not for us, but for us.
Think solutions, think small scale.
It is about women's stories, it is about women's challenges, it's about their experiences, it is about their hope. It's a book about them.
So what am I saying? It's like wow, wow, wow. Oh, it's really difficult for me to talk about. But oh, I'm Tracy. Yes. And this book is also a very personal venture.
But it is not about, it's not about getting the funding to do the work. It's also to see what is out there, what we can do, what is possible.
So now we are ready. So Esther is our co-chair who is joining virtually. So Esther, would you like to turn on your camera and say hello? But then we also have Kathy, who is going to be co-hosting this session. So let's welcome Kathy and Esther. Esther online. And I let you take over from here. And yeah, I do have.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Hilundwa. So welcome back to day 3 of the of our plenary session. So for today, we are on plenary session number 3, Leaders in Climate-Friendly Food System. And this session will be co-chaired, it will be chaired by myself and my colleague Esther Fondo, and she will be introducing the plenary session. So thank you. Esther?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
So,
can you hear me?
You can continue. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. I'm joining you from Kenya, and I would have loved to be there, but due to other engagements, I'm unable to come there. But today I'm chairing the session on climate-friendly food system. Dear participants, small-scale fisheries and small-scale aquaculture food producers play an important role in climate-friendly food systems. And it has become a golden opportunity for African countries to play an important role as leaders in climate-friendly food systems. As we have seen from the video that has just been played, we have a lot to offer. And this is a step in the right direction, as many good lessons already exist in the blue system from the continent that aims to promote more sustainable and locally led blue initiatives. This session will discuss how Africa is strongly leading through myriad opportunities to use climate-friendly food system, reforms to contribute to a range of blue growth benefits. And such benefits include improved population health, improved post-harvest management and technologies, sustainable job creation, among others. The discussion will be based on lessons learned and practical solutions from the continent to approaches and initiatives that aim to build climate resilience results in a diversity of context-specific friendly and viable solutions in the blue world. Our speakers today will give us some of the examples that we have from Africa. Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you, Esther. Okay, thank you, Esther. So I would like to call upon all our speakers for this session. That will include Ms. Alusha Itula, Ms. Maureen Mukami Ngarari, Dr. Richard Nyiwang, Prof. Mafaniso Hara, and then our discussants. I don't know if they would like to come now onto the podium or later, but you are also welcome. Thank you. And so our first speaker for this session will be Maureen. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you. That got me by surprise. I thought I was the second, but yeah, I'm ready. So my name is Maureen. I am from Kenya. I work in Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. I am a mariculture scientist. I work mainly on Atimia culture, Atimia pond culture. I work with the salt ponds, the salt farmers, where we produce Atimia, which is small fish, small food for baby fish, or weaning food for fish. And today I'm going to talk about the benefits of mariculture in small-scale fisheries. Yes, and I am doing it with colleagues Hinzano and Esther Fondo on this. So next slide, please. The green. Let me first start by talking about the small-scale fisheries in Kenya. We have over 60,000 small-scale fishers, and today I'll be talking about the marine fishers because I work in the marine sector, so I am more inclined into the marine sector. And we have 14,000 small-scale fishers in the marine sector. And they have several challenges that they are facing. And one of them is climate change. We've seen temperatures rising, sea level rise. There are issues of pollution. There are issues of invasive species. There are issues of habitat damage and even overfishing. When we look at these threats that they are facing, the reason for them facing these threats is because there is a high demand for fish, and then there are also high poverty levels in the coastal region. In fact, the coastal region of Kenya is one that has the lowest poverty levels. Like, there are many people below the poverty line, and so that causes a lot of leads to overfishing and also destruction of the ecosystem, and so much of that. And also because of this climate change and habitat change, we find that there's a lot of the habitats also they migrate. Some of the organisms migrate, or the fish migrate, and we are getting a lot of problems there. Then there are also negative human impacts because of the issues of, as I've said, there is the issue of poverty. So we have a lot of poor waste management, and also deforestation occurs a lot in the region. So because of that, we have, I don't know how to move this. Oh, because of that, we have over exploitation. We have overfished areas. Like in the nearshore fishery, I tried to draw something similar to the Kenyan coast, and on the nearshore, we find the fishery is optimally exploited for lobsters and crabs, and also the octopus is the fishery is optimally exploited. And then the small-scale reef finfish fishery has also been reducing in landings for the last 40 years. The landings have been decreasing by the years. And then the offshore fishery is underexploited. The reason is because of less technological advancements. We find most of our fishers have very I don't know whether to call it rudimentary, but low technology boats. Some of them even use the boats that they row to go and fish. So they're not able to reach the offshore fishery to get the fish. And so they are mostly fished by trawlers and of owners who don't belong to the country. So the money doesn't come into the country. And because of this, we find there are reduced incomes, and because the catches are also low. And this is the reason why we are thinking of mariculture to help increase the production of fish, and also to put some more money on the fishers, and also to reduce the poverty levels, just to make sure that all these threats are reduced. And so when it comes to mariculture, in Kenya, mariculture started in the 80s, and it started by the prawn culture. The prawn farming is one that started around the 80s in large scale, though there was a project there brought by FAO, and prawn farming started then. And then we had the Belgians who introduced the Artemia culture, and that's where, thanks to that, I am involved in that sector. And we came along in the 90s. The milkfish and mullet farming was introduced. Then in the 2002, crab farming was introduced. Seaweed farming introduced also in 2006. And then currently, we are trying out sea cucumber and lobster farming. And when we look at mariculture, 75 of the seedlings. Apart from artemia and seaweeds, the other seedlings that we culture, we are getting them from the wild, which I will talk about it later and see the reason why we really need to move into the mariculture issues and produce our own seedlings so that we reduce pressure on the wild. And the marine, the cultured species are, as shown. For those who don't know prawns, because I know most of you are much more involved in the small-scale fisheries. That is what we culture in Kenya. Those are the species that we culture. And then, we are also now recently trying the lobsters and the sea cucumber. The Madagascan minister yesterday talked about them having been so much ahead with the issues of sea cucumber farming. We wrote a proposal in 2018, or was it 2019? And we sent it together. We really wanted to get assistance from Dr. Rasolo for Nirina, something like that. I don't know why Madagascar names are so long. I think that takes about 2 of my names. So I don't know whether he's still a doctor or he's already a professor now that we wrote that proposal a long time and we were not able to get the funds. But in our own small way, we have also been trying to culture it in the ponds as we wait for our doctor. Let me not say the name, Dr. R. Let me call him Dr. R. When we get the funds, we will be able to work together and he'll be able to help us to culture or to produce the seedlings. Because what we are doing now, we are culturing what is already in the water. We take the small ones from the ocean and try to culture them. But what we really want is to produce. And we know the Madagascans are way ahead. We heard it from the minister yesterday, so it is true, it's happening. I think we need knowledge sharing in the countries to ensure that we also grow together in this. I talked about, we are talking about climate-friendly food systems. And for us to work on mariculture, we don't want to bring in problems that we will start tackling later. So we are trying to see how we can sustainably produce fish using in the mariculture sector. And by this, we make sure that before we even start the mariculture initiatives, we are able to do site selection for our mariculture areas. Am I on time? Okay. So we do proper site selection, and in this, we also include environmental impact assessments to make sure that whatever we do doesn't affect our future. And also issues, we look at issues of carrying capacity. How much fish do we have in a pond to make sure that we give them the right environmental conditions? And also we look at the kind of feeds that we feed them on so that they are environmentally suitable. And then those are our mariculture systems. There's seaweed farming at the bottom. Then we have cage culture. We have been trying to work on cage culture recently, and we are using wooden cages. If you can see, we are not using plastic because we are trying to avoid the environmental impact. Then we also have ponds for the milkfish and the mullet and the prawns and artemia as well. Then cages. And the crab cages, we are still trying to see how we can modify. For now, we are using bamboo, but we also have to use plastic for floaters. But we are trying to look for better, more environmental ways of doing this. And so, in a nutshell, when in mariculture, we are able to produce fish to supplement what the small-scale farmers cannot produce. And so this will help in reducing reliance on the fishery and the unsustainable also human practices in the sea. Again, when we look at seaweed farming and cage culture, we find fish aggregating on these systems, around these systems. And so that means the fishermen are also able to get their fish near shore, and that really helps. That is something we have noticed, that the seaweed farms and the cages act as fish aggregating devices. So the fishermen are telling us we are getting fish nearer the shore than we used to get it before. Then also, most of our small-scale farmers the mariculture farmers have been, some of them are fishermen. Some of them fish in the night, and then they come during the day and work in the mariculture farm. So they are embracing, the fishermen are also embracing this mariculture. And in case of when the sea is rough, they are able to use it as an alternative livelihood. We were being asked to look for other alternatives for fishermen, but when it is an alternative livelihood that is close to their heart, that is, it's fish, they're producing fish and they have been catching fish, it becomes more easier for them to get into it. And then we also have mangrove conservation. We have most of these, our small-scale farmers are doing a lot of mangrove conservation, because most of them started as conservation organizations, and now they are now increasing in mangroves. I'll show you an example, and some of them are getting carbon credit. Some of them, like this, a mangrove restaurant out of a fish, a crab farming community, and now they are doing crab samosas. They are serving foods, as you can see. We even have a wedding happening in that area because it's within a mangrove environment. They have built a hotel, a very environmentally friendly hotel. Please come and visit. They're getting about 2 million Kenya shillings in a month. That's around 70,000 Kenya shillings. That's like 7,000 Kenya USD in a day for that system. They're getting a lot. They started as a small mariculture group, and now they are where they are. So please, when you come to Kenya, visit Crab Shack. You'll have a good moment of your time. So in a nutshell, mariculture production in Kenya is expected to increase, because for now we have like less than 3% that is happening, because we have a coastline of 640 kilometers, but we have about 20 hectares being used currently. And then a marine hatchery is coming up at the National Mariculture and Research Training Center in Kemfree. So we expect to produce a lot of seedlings in that hatchery. So we are expecting to reduce the pressure on the wild. And then on the fish stock replenishment, when it comes to when fishermen have closed seasons, or when the weather is not good because of climate change, the fishermen are able to have an alternative livelihood. And then we're also thinking of utilizing the bycatch as food for our fish farming. But we hope it doesn't become like the Zambian, where Jemima presented yesterday and saying that the trawlers now see it as an opportunity to sell the bycatch. So we hope it doesn't become that. I have taken note of that. So in conclusion, investment in mariculture, or in mariculture farmers or farms, can protect and restore fish stocks and foster local economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. I would definitely come to Kenya and have my wedding there. And thank you for sharing what you guys are doing in terms of climate-friendly food systems, and how you are diversifying the different types of food products, food cultures, in order to reduce pressure on the captured fisheries. So our next speaker will be Ms. Alusha. Hope you're ready. Yes, thank you.
Good morning once again to all, and thank you, Kathy. How do I push this thing? And thank you, Kathy. So in terms of our preparation for this talk, one of the issues that we needed to address was visioning a climate-friendly food system in Africa. And so, yes, I did visioning, and we need to see what do we want to see Africa look like when we're speaking about climate-friendly food systems. And I thought perhaps it would be good for us to start with high-level policy frameworks. We know that this African country is blessed with various policy frameworks. So within that vision for Africa, one wants to see an Africa where, for example, the CAADP process is entrenched in countries, where countries are in fact doing what CAADP is advocating, investing 10% within agriculture. We also want to see an Africa where the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is putting in place the African Continental Free Trade Area, is also being actioned and it's being realized across the continent. We want to see a continent that plans against the Sustainable Development Goals. These frameworks are there, they're in place, they are guiding us, and we need to ensure that as we move forward and as we plan for a continent where we're going to be able to feed the billions of people that live on the continent, we take these into account. Now, we also know that there's the renewable energy drive, and we know that if Africa is able to, for example, leverage renewable energy towards efficient food production systems, we would be winners. We also know that Africa should be leveraging the carbon credits trading market, and the speaker before me actually alluded to that in terms of the restaurant that is actually tapping into the carbon credits market. There is some money to be made, and Africa will be able to drive its agricultural production towards friendly food systems if we are able to leverage our carbon credits trading market. Then we have, for example, data. There's a lot of data. NASA is producing a lot of data, and that data can assist Africa to drive its climate-friendly food systems because it maps out what we should be able to produce where, in what quantities, and the kind of crops that we can produce. And all in the while, keeping in mind that whatever we do on the continent needs to be achieved through agricultural production that looks and works within a circular economy. We also then need to plug into global food value chains, whether it's small-scale fishers, small-scale farmers, medium, corporate fishers and farmers. We need to plug into global food value chains, and this requires our governments obviously to put in place conducive policies and to harmonize the different policies across the continent so that we are able to do that. If we look at our local and indigenous foods in Africa, we're so good at establishing standards, for example, for export, but we haven't done very well as a continent in terms of being able to establish standards so that we can trade freely among and between ourselves. So we're talking here a data-rich Africa that will enable us to make use of technology to drive food production systems. We need to skill our fishers and farmers, and we also need to innovate as a continent. Now, as I was doing research for this talk, I also realized that many years ago in 2014, the Food and Agriculture Organization already considered, for example, what we call sustainability in food systems, which rests upon these three pillars of achieving an economic impact, as well as social impact and environmental impact, and the importance of us looking at these three pillars equitably in terms of our planning as well as our execution. So very important for us to peg our ecosystems, food ecosystems, sustainable food ecosystems across these pillars. I also came about this particular data set in one of the emerging reports on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And what this shows us is that agriculture is one of the policy areas where all regional economic communities in Africa have actually agreed in terms of policy provisions. And that means that our agricultural sector is one of our niche sectors as Africa in terms of our ability to push and grow that sector. There was also emerging data on the agricultural outlook on the continent. And it indicates that by 2028, the continent will continue experiencing a deficit where fish supply is concerned, which is relevant for our talk here. And so without a doubt, for example, if we are going to make sure that we are able to produce and have enough fish for our people on the continent, we need to ensure that we are able to put in place and transform our aquatic food systems, in particular aquaculture. And my sister before me spoke about mariculture in Kenya and the need to drive that. So we need to look at that. And for those of you who haven't taken a look at the state of fisheries and aquaculture, the FAO State of Fisheries and Aquaculture report for 2022, please do that so that you can join in this vision of transforming Africa's aquatic food systems. Now, yesterday we heard from the policy panel under the chairmanship of Ahmed Khan and Motseki. They gave us renewed hope for the continent. But we also heard from Muniba, who reminded us that transformation requires disruptive approaches, in particular to funding. And I echo Muniba's sentiments here. Funding is always in excess for Africa, yet funding is always in short supply. This is such a weird thing. But maybe the financial sector friends who are here with us today can explain this unusual phenomena for Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, I trust and believe that you share in my vision for Africa's food systems. It's a vision that can be achieved if we work together, if we work in partnership, and I hereby submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, for telling us about the vision you have for Africa and what potential we can have to transform the food systems in Africa. So the next speaker will be Richard. So, yes.
I'm a little bit tall. So thank you. Good morning, everyone. So just like able to share more, so I'm still a PhD candidate at the University of Guelph, so I am able to know yet as a doctor. So she introduced me as a Richard, so I'm still a PhD candidate. But thank you so much for like wishing me well. So soon I hope I'll be done and I'll be able to, I mean, next time we meet I should be a doctor, hopefully. Yeah, so I mean, thank you so much. Yeah, so I mean, we have been able to like really share more on it. So my main talk here is just for us to like share some of those good stories from the continent, like what people are doing to be able to achieve some of these climate-friendly systems. So like, yeah, I would like to like really, like, I mean, we have heard about as a climate change, it's like saying no more news, like we have sea erosion, like people are really having effects around the whole world. So but now my main talks about is in Africa, and then I would like to really zoom in, but I mean, my main goal here is to like share what are people doing? You know, like, of course, we have all these effects, but then people in various small areas are doing small things that really matter. And then, of course, we cannot contribute to the global world without us contributing to the small things we can do. So I would like to like share my story based on a small little country. Like Gambia is a very small country of just 2 to 3 million people, but they are doing something great that the whole Africa can really emulate. Like here, Gambia, so it's a country I've been as working in for the past 5 years, and it's a very small place. But then, so I just like to just share more on some stats. So we had this stats from the World Bank where you can see capture fisheries from 2015 to now going down in the country. That shows that there is something as going on. Same thing with aquaculture too. We could see like a trend like as in going down. But now we now ask ourselves, why all this and now what is really happening? So like now, so I'd like to like really share more based on like using stories from the mangrove oysters system. So like there, women really like dominate when it comes to oysters. There are more than 800 plus oyster harvesters in the Gambia, all as women who really able to control from harvesting, processing, and selling. But now, like, but then, so we did a survey with them. We like interviewed close to 500 oyster harvesters, and then we saw that they all expressed their mind that climate change is a big issue affecting the mangroves. Like the catch has gone down, like the mangroves have been disrupted, sea erosion, and I mean, you could even see the mangroves has been drying out. And then, but then what are they doing? So they have been able to plant as mangroves. avoid the way they like using cut down trees to like use. But one thing also, but the key message I want to like share here is that the Gambia has been a very unique place. So that's why here now my main talk is about this enabling environment. What have they been doing all this while? And the first thing that in 2007, the government passed a law like a fisheries as a policy where they gave small scale fishers an exclusive users right. So it means small groups can be able to form, small fishers can be able to like form groups. And this is something very rare in the whole as a continent where we see small scale fishers being given that power to be able to really manage their own as a fisheries. So that was a very big step in 2007 where it led to the creation of a tri-oyster women group. So this group have been able to like really train other women on how to manage the oysters. And one key thing they have done, you can imagine, in a year they harvest oyster just 4 months in a year. So they have been able to stick to this close season, make sure that, okay, we try to manage and then ensure we have cash every year. And then also they have been able to like train, but then this have been done through the help of so many international sponsors, US, AID, WWF. They've been able to like using come in, train these women, help them on how best they can really manage this fishery, which has been something great. But so you see like, although the policy is there, but we still need this international help to be able to help the women really manage the fisheries. One other medicine fisheries to that is very important, like sole. Sole is a very important export as a fisheries in the country. So in fact, they make close to 500,000 euros every year just from sole. And then also like, yeah, sole is mostly men, but then when we like began talking with them, they showed that the sole catch has been going down every year. And then now, but then in 2009, they established the National Sole Co-Management as a committee where they can be able to like really talk more. What can we do to really manage them as sole? How can we do? But the point is they are still faced with the same as a backstop, like, funding for them to be able to collect as a data, because you can't really manage any fisheries if you don't really have this good as in data. And then now for me to be able to really share some of the key points is that for sole to really as to produce well, they have to like really stay off season for 6 months. Like imagine a small scale fisher staying off the fishing for 6 whole months. What would they eat? Where is the food using going to come from? Two, sole is a migratory species, so we need like a regional plan because the sole move to like other as a country, Senegal. So we can't just have one country trying to manage the whole as a fish. And then two, we have also illegal as a fishing too, of course, which we know is a very big issue when it comes to the West African coast. And that also really affects the whole sole catch. And then also, of course, data also is a very big as an issue. But now my main key as a message here, it's not going next. Like, yeah, so the point is, of course, we have people trying to do things in these various as locals, but the point is there are many things hindering them. If you don't have this livelihood, if we can't eat, how do we stay off as a fishing for like 6 months, So, and then two, like also we need like to have plans where countries that they have this species come together to be able to have like a whole plan. How do we really manage this as a species? Tell it to like in the Gambia, women can stay off like for like they just harvest oyster for like 4 months and they are off for 8 months in a whole year. So now you ask yourself, what do they eat? How do they manage a household? So they have been able to like do household jobs like they become maids, like they like as a farming tool to be able to like live off the as a fisheries. But then the men have no choice. The men were born into fishing. Fishing is their only hope, And then two, they see this lack of as a financing. And then but now my key message is that in the continent, like when it comes to governance, of course, we have head of co-management. There are a lot of policies. Like Africa is very good when it comes to policies. We have written a lot of stuff. And also when it comes to like social as a cultural, like of course, yes, we have been trying to include local people when it comes to knowledge management, fish management. But the key thing I want us to really emphasize is how do we help these people financially? In other these fisheries in Canada and co, fishers have insurance schemes, so they do this well. I'll be happy to like see things like the African Union, African as in bank, to be able to like really also create like an insurance scheme where once these people are off them as a fishing, they can be able to have like at least something that they can live from. Because how can you tell a father with like 6 kids, like to like stay off this fishing for 6 months without any funds? So I think one thing I'm not really here to speak here is that we need to invest in these people. We need at least an African insurance scheme where people can be able to at least know, okay, when I'm off them as a fishing for the next 5 months, I have even just $100 every month. It's going to count a lot. So that should be the new talk. We shouldn't just be doing these policies as a documents. I'm also shocked that like when you go around, you don't see any policy about insurance, but people, we cannot ensure sustainability. We cannot do anything. We cannot do any climate smart innovations if these economic enabling environments are not there. So thank you. This is so much. That is just my own key talk, and I acknowledge all my sponsors so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for actually telling us we need to consider that when we are coming up with environmental management plans, we have to consider also that there are people that need to feed or to, there are people that need a livelihood. So thank you for that. Let me call Prof. Hara as our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrina. As the hosting institution, I would like to echo Muniba's and directors. Welcome to Cape Town for the Congress. My talk is around the role of small pelagics in climate-friendly food systems. When we started talking about this, I wasn't so sure I would have anything to say about this. But I see that we have managed, the four of us, to place our talks in different aspects. So my argument is that we need to emphasize the use of small pelagics, which are more beneficial to most people on the African continent. Is it the red one? This one. Okay. Okay, so if we look at the food chain or food pyramid itself, you will find that although the aquatic and terrestrial environments have equal organic matter, we as human beings, we only provision about 3% of our food from the aquatic system, which is totally different from the amount of food that is provisioned through agriculture from the terrestrial system. And you will find that the small pelagic fish species, which are at the lower level of the pyramid or food chain, are the ones that are very important for most fishers. Because the large top, what's happening also is that in most instances, most of the large top predators, which are carnivorous, are being overexploited in most African systems. We hear about the degradation of key species that are high value species in most instances, and the fact that more and more small-scale fishers and most fishers are depending on what is remaining there, and what is most remaining there in most systems are small pelagics, which are more valuable and also more important to small-scale fishers. So what the argument is that by harvesting small pelagics at a lower level, what we're doing is that we are actually enhancing the productivity of those systems in terms of food and also food nutrition. If we look at the importance of small pelagics in Africa, we'll find that where in most instances, as I said, most of the large species have been depleted, most small-scale fishers are now depending on small pelagics. The importance of these small pelagics can be shown that in the sense that in most of these key systems, for example, Lake Victoria, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Malawi, Nyasa, so on and so forth, you will find that the key species that people are depending on are small pelagics, daga, usipa, carpenter, in Lake Chad, which is salanga, so on and so forth. So these are the main things that small scale fishers are depending on. In marine systems, you will find that a lot of the small scale fishers are depending on the species such as the anchovies, sardines, mackerel, herring, so on and so forth, which are key species. And if you look at the production or the potential production for most of these species, you will find that it is estimated that potentially the inland aquatic systems in Africa have produced about 4 million tons of small pelagics and 7 million tons of marine fish, most of which is actually small pelagics. So the importance of small pelagics is key in most systems. So the issue that I want to emphasize is the importance of small pelagics in terms of ecosystem and climate-friendly processes and value chains. So here I'm raising a few factors that are key. When we talk about small pelagics, most of them are processed as sun-dried fish, which means that you are using natural energy, which is sun, other than the big species, which are more, mostly or usually smoked. And in most catchments, you will find that the utilization of big species which require smoking has led to localized deforestation in those areas. You will also find that in most instances, these small species are eaten whole. You do not fillet them or you do not remove anything. You eat the whole of the fish, right from the tail to the head. So you are actually using all the nutrition values that fish provide, protein, micro nutrients, so on and so forth. The other key is that they are, once you dry the fish, it keeps longer. In most instances, in most people, they don't have fridges, so on and so forth. They're able to keep the fish or store it longer when it comes to selling and also after they have bought it for eating. And also, apart from that, they're more robust when it comes to transportation. Most of these small pelagics I'm talking about are transported using public transport, buses or lorries, hitchhiking, so on and so forth. So this is where I'm saying that they are more robust when it comes to transportation and also marketing systems. The other key is that in most instances, they are sold in such a way that most people can afford in small amounts, in small packets, so on and so forth. In a way that most people can actually afford, depending on their income. So these are some of the key issues that we need to talk about when it comes to small pelagics. So my argument is that also that when it comes to cross-border trade, which in most instances on Africa is conducted by women, most of it, over 70% is conducted by women, you will find that what is being traded are mostly small pelagic fish which have been sun-dried or parboiled and then sun-dried or smoked and then sun-dried. So the the issue of small pelagics is key when it comes also to livelihoods, not only for fishers, but also people along the value chain, including the traders, so on and so forth. So the argument I'm putting forward is that it makes sense for us to promote the sustainable utilization and trading of small scale, not small scale, but small pelagics, on which most small scale fishers depend, because that's the type of fish that most of them depend on, not only for food and nutrition, but also for livelihoods. So our management systems need to emphasize the sustainable utilization of small scale, small pelagics in terms of livelihoods, food security, and nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Hara, for just informing us the value of small pelagics to food security. Yeah, we are done with our 4 speakers, so I would like to call upon the 2 discussants who will summarize and just give a general perspective on the 4 presentations. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por las interesantes presentaciones de la mañana. Yo voy a hablar un poquito sobre cada una, empezando por... Oh my gosh. Sorry. I can speak German as well. I'm in another continent. Okay, I will start with giving little comments, I think, about what the presenters show us today. And we'll start with Marina and the aquaculture presentation. I really enjoy that you call it in the title and all your presentation, small scale aquaculture, because when we talk about we want aquaculture and aquaculture is the solution, I think it's definitely needed to divide between large scale and small scale aquaculture. It's like talking about fisheries. It's two completely different things. So thank you for putting that in the title and for talking about that. I was a bit struck still about why those changes in species. Does it mean that the shrimps didn't work, so they switched to another? And I meant it's been built. Oh, sorry. We've been building on aquaculture. So as you saw, my arrow was kind of the dots were increasing, so that we are still culturing the organisms, only that we keep increasing different species along the way over the years. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we'd like to discuss why do you need new if there were some ready all there? Mm-hmm. So Okay. what is the dynamics that you have to? I know that Norwegian salmon started with salmon and went up. I'll comment So on that. We I'll can comment talk on about that yes. once. Okay. Yeah. That would be great to understand what is the dynamics of these different systems. Then I have some comments about the second presentation about transformations. And I think we remember many things that were said yesterday. Yes, blue transformation. And I was wondering if we can also transform the visions, the old visions that we have. As I said, aquaculture is the solution. We need more production of fish. If we can also try to understand that maybe we should first change our ideas and then try to transform, and not the other way, not try to transform with all ideas. Because do we really need more production of fish or food
in the world? Is that the problem, that there's not enough food, or is the distribution of the food? We are using lots of fish for fish meal, for example. So, and also think about that poverty and lack of food security and even famines in the war happened far away before we had overexploitation of fish, we have overpopulation, we have environmental problems. There was already poverty in the world when we didn't have these problems that we have now. So maybe instead of trying to solve problems, new problems, maybe start thinking, why don't we start with the first ones that were there and not putting more and more on top. So it's just an idea of changing visions, because I feel a bit frustrated that, as Moniba said, we need disruption, but we can start with these changes in our ideas, in our ways we talk, in the ways we think about solutions. And solutions do not even come from, if something is not working, it's not a solution. There are examples, of course, that aquaculture has been promising in Norway. It was a good solution for them. But the other message is that solutions are not panaceas. So every place needs a solution. So if aquaculture is the solution for Madagascar, fine. But that doesn't mean that it's the solution for all Africa. So every place has, according to the context, has to find their own solutions. And that needs lots of thinking and not just copying or trying to copy the solutions. And that's where I find it so promising. These solutions are in the small-scale fisheries, because they are different and they will find their own solutions. And that's what I think we have to start changing in our minds, that the solutions do not come from science, could come from science, but scientists working with small-scale fisheries or Western ideas, or because if you can have an idea, okay, aquaculture is fine, the moment you start doing lots of money with your aquaculture, other investments will come and you won't be able to compete with them. So it's going to be, maybe you will get a job in the really rich business of aquaculture. And the other problem is also that in Sweden, for example, where I live, we all are eating Norwegian salmon, and when the local fishermen want to sell their fish, so why will I have to go at 6 a.m. when it's cold and buy local fish if I can go to the supermarket from 9 till 10 and buy Norwegian fish? It's also fish, and it's even cheaper. So there's a problem of competence with them. Okay. Before the pelagics, I had the presentation about climate change, and a nice example of co-management to alleviate the problems of climate change. But yeah, of course, co-management brings also some problems with them, so it has to be made transdisciplinary, so with real compromise of the fishermen to work with them, and that you need data, that's for sure. But you mentioned the challenges, and I think you mentioned also some nice ideas, that it's not just governance, it's not just the social cultural aspects, but it's also that you need good innovation and a good economic environment for these people who wants to invest and make a living of it. I see the same examples in Sweden, people who wants to do things, but they don't even know where to ask or how to get some help on how to put a business, a very small business. And finally, the presentation from Mafaniso Hara, talking about pelagics, small pelagics. I'm fully with him, needs to be promoted. It's what people eat. It's, I come from Peru, and all the pelagics go to the fish mill. So be aware of that too. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning, folks. My name is Lance Jumatiro. I come from Malawi, but I play a role at the continent level. I coordinate the African Union Policy Research Network for Fisheries and Aquaculture. And as we heard yesterday from my colleague Blessing, I've been involved in the policy reforms on the continent since the time that we started talking about fish as part of CADA. So I'm really privileged to be here. I would like to congratulate all the presenters. They've made very fantastic presentations. And my take is that first we had a story from the Gambia told by Mr. Richard, not yet Dr. Richard, soon. And this story represents the African fish-dependent communities who have low adaptive capacity to climate change. And this is in part because of income poverty, but also they have fewer alternative livelihoods. And I think we've been hearing about these stories. But unfortunately, this is happening at the time of increasing demand for food, for fish, when the wild sources of fish are also coming under immense pressure from overexploitation. So we are really stuck with situations that are really difficult for these people. Therefore, the fish-dependent communities require greater support and capacity building for them to transition to more sustainable aquatic food systems. But it is important for us to recognize that actions for transitioning are going to be context dependent. And I think my colleague just alluded to that what works in the Gambia may not necessarily work in my country, in Malawi. However, the actions can be broadly categorized into 5 areas, which I think first is for us to ensure that we have effective fisheries and aquaculture governance. And I think we've heard about these stories where governance is critically important. Second, improved fisheries management and conservation practices. There are a lot of stories that we've heard from many countries, particularly spearheaded by non-governmental organizations. Number 3 is we need to build capacity of fish-dependent communities to engage in fish trade so that they can raise their incomes. And I think fish trading is extremely important. So we need to ensure that we can transition these communities from subsistence to market-led fishing activities or aquaculture activities. Number 4, we need to enhance equitable fish production and distribution, because I think this is extremely important. A lot of fish is being produced, but sometimes doesn't reach the people that need to have access to it. Number 5, importantly, we need to adopt technologies for low input and low impact fisheries and aquaculture production. And I think this is extremely important coming out of the COP27 issues of carbon footprint for the fish production must be taken into account. Now, because of my background at the continental level, I wish to agree with my colleague Alushe. By the way, Alushe worked together at NEPAT many years back. She has reminded us of the need for the vision of building climate-friendly aquatic food systems to start with the continental policy framework. And here the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program is very important, of course, complemented by the African Union Policy Framework and Reform Strategy for Fisheries and Aquaculture. In this regard, at the continent level, last year in September, Africa came together to take part in the Global Food System Summit. I think some of you might have been involved in that process. And here we're discussing what are called game-changing solutions to transition food systems by combining both the achieving the 17 SDGs from the UN point of view, but here in Africa, we're focusing on the Africa Agenda 2063, so we're combining these. However, for African context, the food systems transition must help the continent to achieve the 20 goals that we have set under the Africa that we need by 2063. Therefore, through the NEPAD and African Union, the continent presented what was called the common position within the framework of CAADP. And through the CAADP agenda, African leaders envisioned a food systems approach to attain agriculture-led economic transformation for the member states. Now, for countries where fish is very important, the 6% target that Alushe had mentioned cannot be achieved without accounting for the contribution of fisheries and aquaculture. And this is where we need expertise to ensure that at the country level, we can define how much of fish contributes to the agriculture GDP and the food and nutrition security. Therefore, for both the SDGs and the African Agenda 2063, within the context of fisheries and aquaculture, I think we have two major challenges that we need to take into account. First is minimizing the biodiversity loss caused by fish production. As you know, as we're producing more fish because of the demand, we're also having impact on the biodiversity. And second is achieving sustainable fish production. These two are inversely related to each other. As we are mining one, we're actually affecting the other one. So we need really to focus science on this so that we can balance the two. And we have heard from Professor Mafa that there is a rise in the small pelagics, particularly in the African Great Lakes, where there is a transition from the larger species to smaller ones. Incidentally, these small fishes are very tasty, and if they are eaten whole as they are, they provide more nutrients to the people, and therefore we need to ensure that we can sustainably manage this, put in place fisheries management plans, but also co-management to ensure that the communities that are involved in exploiting these can have a say in how they are exploited. And therefore, we need to aim at achieving agri-food systems that include aquatic foods and enable countries to achieve what last year we called the food livelihood trade nexus as part of the food systems. We heard since yesterday that we have very strong fish producer organizations that are strongly advocating for food sovereignty, and therefore this food livelihood nexus helps us to get there. Now, moving forward, we need to adopt policies and practices that promote adaptation. Aquaculture is one of them. We heard from Kenya. We also need to scale out, scale up, scale deep. We heard from Sam yesterday to improve fisheries and aquaculture technologies for sustainable intensification. Secure tenure of fisheries is extremely important because this helps fishers to be more responsive. Social safety nets are extremely important. Climate data knowledge is important. We've heard from Alushe, but also risk insurance is very important. We heard from Richard. This risk should not only cover for what happens in a business of fishing, but also the period that we are closing or when the women are not catching fish. Lastly, Alushe reminded us of the visioning, and therefore we need to ensure that fish issues go into the CAADP biannual reporting. There's a process of putting together heads of states report towards the end of the year. We notice that fish often doesn't go into those reports, so you are the experts that need to interface with Ministry of Agriculture in your countries to ensure that fish is accounted for the 6% annual growth. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to our discussant. So I would like to hand over the floor. I would like to hand over to Esther so that you can just take off before we start with our question and answers and other discussions. Esther?
Hi again, can you hear me? So thank you very much, all the speakers and our discussants. It was a very interesting and informative session. And we have learned a lot in terms of what Africa has to offer and how it's leading in the climate-friendly food system. And especially knowing that the climate change risks and all the other risks that our small-scale fishers adapting and are resilient to all this, trying to make sure that they're bringing the knowledge that they have and capture what science and innovation has to give so that they are able to bring up food systems that are climate friendly and food systems that can enable us to, sustain our livelihoods. And that's very good. And now I think we'll have one question for the panel, for the speakers, which is about the vision and what they foresee as the challenges, some of these challenges that will be there for the climate-friendly food systems. If they can answer that question. I think Alusha tried to bring out about the vision for Africa, but we can also have more discussions on that. Perhaps also our discussants can also give us some more insights about the visions and some challenges that they already see. They have already mentioned some, but we can continue discussing this. Thank you. So perhaps one of the speakers can start discussing or giving us a vision and some of the challenges.
Maybe can I first comment on Milena's comments, because I had said I'll mention something after this. She asked about the reason why introduction of different mariculture species over the years. And my issue is we have changing times, we are getting more expertise, and also the areas where these mariculture species are being cultured are different. I think I should have shown the map, maybe where they are placed. They are at different places. Like for example, when it comes to Artemia farming, it's done in the salt ponds, so that's the only ecosystem where they can survive. Then when it comes to seaweed farming, we have a site in the north coast, in the south coast of Kenya. We don't have any at the north coast, so we have this species in different parts of the region. And then when I talk of changing times, when it comes to the seaweed, with the sea cucumber farming, the reason why we thought about it was not because maybe we thought like it is succeeding in Madagascar. It's because when there was a development by the government, SGR, the Standard Gauge Railway, and we had, because it was being built by the Chinese, and so we had a lot of sea cucumber then being drawn from the sea. So we realized, in fact, it was in the papers that we are getting depleted stocks of sea cucumber, and that's how our idea of culturing, to ensure that we provide fish to the sea cucumber to the rising demand, to avoid depletion of the sea cucumber in the sea. That's the reason why we had thought of that idea. And also, when it comes to the reason why we have thought of mariculture is also the issues of in the coastal region, it's too dry. You cannot depend, the communities there cannot depend on agriculture, and So the only survival techniques that they have, mostly that is at hand, is the issue of fish farming, and that's the reason for mariculture. Thank you. And in terms of what Esther asked about the challenges that we are looking into, we are thinking of, if it becomes large scale, as you said, if it grows into large scale, then we are going to get the issues of diseases arising, the fish diseases. So it's something that we also have to think about. Thank you.
Any speaker would like to answer?
Maybe I can just comment on this. Yeah. Maybe I can just comment on what Melina talked about, the fact, the use of small pelagics for fish meal. Yeah, I think that's quite a big problem for even Africa, in the sense that you find that in some countries, small species, pelagic species, are being utilized for fish meal in order to promote aquaculture. The argument I'm putting forward is that it's more efficient to promote the utilization of those species for direct human consumption, rather than promoting them, using them for aquaculture. The other issue is that in most instances, the aquaculture species that we're talking about are usually high value species, which most low-income people cannot afford. So you're taking the type of fish that they can depend on directly to produce species or a type of food or fish that they cannot actually afford. So that's the key issue. I've got a small project here which I'm doing here in South Africa, which we are looking at the promotion of anchovy for human consumption. The idea is that at the moment, what's happening is that all the anchovy here in South Africa is either reduced to fish meal or fish oil. What we're trying to do is to promote the direct utilization of anchovy for human consumption by looking at specific type of products, but that can be used or can be utilized for by human beings. So the important point is that what we need, or what we're trying to do, is to promote direct consumption of small pelagics instead of utilizing them for fish meal, which is not really that energy efficient, because you need a lot of those species in order to produce one fish. So that's the argument that I was alluding to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from our, okay. Esther, do you perhaps have any questions from the people online?
Yes, thank you. There is a comment first and then a question by Cornelia Nansen. And it's a bit long, but I'll read it. Participants might have be interested in this open access article. Just a moment. There's an article that she has shared, and she says, if you look at the annual growth rates, it may be difficult to achieve 6% per year for a long period from either a natural system or a technology growth rates in aquaculture in China, which accounts for 60% of global production, has gone down by 2% in recent years, despite impressive long-term experience. So I can't see the question itself. But yeah, she was just trying to comment about the growth, and if it can be attained in the aquaculture systems. It's a very long comment, but there's a paper she has shared here, which is she's asking people to have a look at.
Esther can deal with that question. I think I mentioned the 6% annual growth. This is the target for agriculture as a whole. The African Union agreed that if we are going to address the SDG number 2, then the agriculture sector must grow at a minimum of 6% per year. And the agriculture sector here includes fisheries and aquaculture plus any other food production. Now, within that process, we have to understand how much of fish is of that 6%. And within that 6%, you find that there's maybe wheat, there's maize, potatoes, and so on and so forth, yams. But for countries where fish is important, then we need to be able to understand how much of that 6% is coming from agriculture. What we did back in 2014, we estimated the proportion of fisheries and aquaculture of the 6%. I think this was a joint project between NEPAD and FAO. I think Lena, we worked together on that to quantify, to evaluate. And so it's not only the fish that contributes the 6%. In fact, in many countries, the fish only maybe contributes 1% or 2%, but we need to ensure that that contribution must be accounted for in the national accounting, but also it must continue to grow so that the demand for fish can be attained. Thank you. I hope I've answered.
Any more questions online?
Yeah,
Esther?
thank you. So, yeah, thank you. So within the same context, Cornelia was asking in the beginning, thanks for the interesting talks. Katrina pointed mostly at efforts going in the direction of export-oriented high-value species. One may doubt that they will benefit small-scale fishers while they need to be fed, except stinky cucumber. Of course, it seems that this addresses a segment and will be more capital investment than most people in small-scale fisheries cannot mobilize even if they wanted to become farmers. Despite the excellent intention to avoid plastic and imported inputs, there will also be issues of access to land and other resources. So the question is whether a strong orientation for developing aquaculture and associated costs is preferable to improving fisheries management, e.g. reduce industrial fishing in competition with small-scale fisheries, and then have to purchase fish from Asia or other countries, potentially even then ending up as feed in aquaculture. What about fixing the issues with 97% of your food production instead of concentrating on 3%? So that's the question.
Anyone? Esther? Or should I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you are right. In fact, from a policy point of view, what we recommend is that aquaculture development should not be at the expense of fisheries, because as we've heard, fish is there. Yesterday we heard from Professor Sumaila that fish can provide food in perpetuity as long as it can be managed, and therefore there is a need to balance investments into sustainable fish production or fisheries management. But where we have no options, let us also ensure that aquaculture can be developed so that others that are physically not able to access fish from the wild ecosystems are able to do that. But also if there are economic opportunities to be had, then we need to do that. But there should always be a balance so that we are not developing aquaculture at the expense of investing in sustainable fish production, fisheries management, co-management, and others. So, but that balance is fairly tricky, depending on the narrative, policy narrative at the country level. So, but I think it's entirely up to us as experts to ensure that we can advise our policymakers to balance those appropriately.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to give an opportunity to the room. Okay. Please do introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Julio Zita. I am from Mozambique. I am trained on Explore Sea. So I'm trained from University of Fisheries and the Management of Fishing Enterprises. My questions are regarding to first presentation. I would like to understand very well. It's not well clear when we talk about small-scale fisheries. We should put things clear, because small-scale fisheries in my country, for instance, comprehends artisanal and semi-industrial fisheries. And on my experience, artisanal fisheries also differs from country to country. So what exactly is that? We started presentation a long time ago. I would like to ask you to see some slides, but let me remember. The presenter first from Kenya said that they went to aquaculture because there is over exploitation. But at the same time, she says that they are bigger vessels catching at sea. So what are they catching if there's no fish there? But my understanding is, I work on technology for more than 20 years. We build crafts, we make applied research on fishing gears and exploitation. So all these things to push the fishermen, which are mainly fishing at the coastline to the sea. Who works on technology will understand that when we deal with craft, the craft has too much to do with geological characteristics of the coast. So there's no way to make the same type of crafts for all the countries or one unique country. It depends on the kind of seabed you have, the coastline you have. The technology depends on the target species you want. So all these things changes from situation to situation. So I see that we are talking about small-scale fisheries, but we're moving around. We're not going to the target, which fishing expenses and the price of the fish starts with the costs of operation at sea. So this is the main issue. The investment should be done on that. The professor which is talking about small scale, but
maybe if I can give an opportunity also to the other speakers, not speakers, but yeah, questions.
If possible, 1 minute only,
okay,
please.
Okay.
1 minute. There's a panelist which talking about small pelagics. Small pelagics are mainly used for feeding people. If we're in Africa, we're talking about feeding people. We have to target our attention to small pelagics, even though they're used for fishing meal, for other industries, but small pelagics are for that. And then we are afraid to do that because investment on small pelagics, for them, the most indicated gear is purseine, and purseine is costly gear. But that is the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Thank you very much. My name is Aliou Salam, coming from Senegal. I have a, I would like to start with the presentation on the, this biggest role, great role of pelagics. It's very important. And I was very concerned and even, by your presentation, because this species might be considered like an emblematic species today in the fisheries. When we say too big to ignore, referring to small-scale fisheries, in my point of view, I refer directly to pelagics. Because beyond this role well-known, food security, employment, revenue, in addition, all the prestige, social prestige women gain through years in the fisheries is thanks to pelagics. Because they represent, in a country like Senegal, 80% of landings by our small-scale fishers. This is the reason why I told myself, I hope in your reflection and with regard to all these perspectives given to pelagic, that you integrate two main factors that I consider like might be tribulation or risk. For example, if you have a project, you have opportunity and risk. The one have been pointed out by Milena. The use of pelagic for fish meal. I'm talking about my country. I'm Senegalese. I know what I'm saying. And I'm free to say, today, the population, starting by Fish Workers Organization, since 2 years, have been denouncing, an illegal practice from our Minister of Fishery, who continue signing, authorization for foreign plants from Asia. I don't need to talk about nationality here. To just take this pelagic and produce fish meal. This, I think, is a very important. Sometimes I feel very sad, because when you talk about, issues related to poor governance, to policies, even if you have people who are engaged, for example, involved, for example, in government, they don't want really to feel concerned and just interact and take this issue in hands. I can say that all this nice perspective we have in mind will be reduced just to dream, unrealizable, if we don't take the courage to really question our governance. It's very important. And I finished by saying that as we are expecting to leave Cape Town with at least one agenda, I think this, the use of pelagic that becomes the only source of how we say, of food for our population must be included, in our agenda. And how to just, implement this action we can talk about. But we must have a plan of action at the level of the continent, with collaboration with all these regional and continental fisheries bodies we have. Thanks a lot.
Can I please recommend to the room to be short and straight to the point, to allow others in the room to also have another chance?
I'm here already.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me give you a chance.
All right,
Alex?
thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for this important session. And I would like to thank all the speakers who contributed to this session. I just wanted to add some few comments to what the presenters have already said. And I will start with the lady who spoke about Kenya and spoke about mariculture. Now, the point I just want us to reflect upon is to consider mariculture within the context of small-scale fisheries. Now, in Africa, industrialization of fisheries started in this form, where alternative ways of fishing or alternative way of generating fish food was really highlighted as a way of industrialization, and then industrial fishing became the norm, and all African countries started embracing industrial fishing, especially the coastal ones. And over time, we have seen the impact of these kinds of industrializations on our continent. Now, within the context of the blue economy, mariculture and aquaculture has taken similar trend, where we are now advocating for mariculture and aquaculture as an alternative to the challenges or the dwindling small-scale fisheries. Here, let's take example the small pelagics. The point I want to make is that let us be very careful in our advocacy of mariculture and aquaculture within the context of the African continent, because we have examples to relate to in terms of industrialization of fisheries. If we don't take time and comparably, we compare mariculture and aquaculture to small-scale fisheries, we might lose, the continent approach to fisheries, which is basically small-scale fisheries, we all know. From South Africa to Ghana to Benin to wherever, Senegal, our main source of food in terms of fisheries is small-scale fisheries. Here, we talk of the pelagics and those related fisheries. So I just want us to be careful, and when we are contextualizing mariculture within the space of small-scale fisheries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I give an option to the speakers just to respond and then continue with the next?
Thank you very much. I agree with the speaker from Senegal that the issue of utilization of small pelagics for aquaculture, or even later on the fishing agreements that in most instances, small-scale fishers have no consent, or so not consent, have no participation when it comes to decisions about those agreements, is a key issue that we need to deal with when it comes to governance on the continent. The issue of utilization of small pelagics for aquaculture, as Sloan said, has to be balanced against what can be utilized for direct consumption. For example, in terms of efficiency, I can't remember exactly, but they say that it takes 4 kilos of fish meal to produce 1 kg of an aquaculture species. So it's more efficient to have or to feed or to utilize those small pelagics directly by human beings rather than through utilization of those as fish meal. I've heard a number of studies being done around the continent about the use of, is it called soldier fly? Black soldier fly as one of the substitutes for utilization of fish for aquaculture. So I think maybe the message is also getting across in general in terms of policy when it comes to choices that need to be made in the utilization of small pelagics, either for direct human consumption or for fish meal. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I respond to the first question on the issue of underexploitation of the offshore fishery. I mentioned, yes, there is underexploitation of the offshore fishery because the small-scale fishers are not able to access high technology. We find most of them using small wooden crafts along the shore, and those who like when you mention of the semi-industrial small-scale fishers, most of them have to hire, or they are given a boat by, they call them tajiris. So they are given a boat and they go off the shore to try and fish and get some fish. But when they come back, there are like 10 of them and they share the loot, and it's little money that they get. And then they give, maybe Esther will explain how that happens, but you find they don't really get the real, a lot of income or the much economic value that they would have gotten based on the amount of time they use. And then, yes, you mentioned about the black soldier fly. People are now looking into that, and also Artemia biomass is also being looked into, the issue of the fish feed.
Okay, 3 more questions and then we can wrap up. Okay.
Thank you. I have not a question, it's just comments and exchange experiences on mariculture and anchovy. I'm sorry, I'm Kangwan Chatarachon from Thailand. So I have some experience in managing a fish farm. And I realized that we have to change our idea to culture, not for making a profit. We have to think about profit and food security. So the species that we will culture in the future should be quit from carnivorous to omnivorous or herbivorous. And the poor people can eat it, even at a reasonable price. According to the anchovy, Thailand has a very long experience to utilize anchovy. Anchovy will be that mainly used as a raw material for fish meal. What we classify the production of the anchovy into 2 grades. The premium one, we boil and dry. And then after that, we process, add some herbs and cook for the consumer preference. And we can sell to the tourists and to the people in the country, which they already get a good price. This activity we can create more employment to the housewife of the fishers, and also value added on anchovy. And for the second grade of anchovy, we use also boil and dry and make it in powder. And we can mix this powder anchovy within noodles that we can distribute this one to the people who are in remote area. They can get a good nutrient from the powder anchovy. And the last one, we use it as a raw material for fish paste. It's a fish sauce. So we can use it for human consumption, not for animal consumption. So that's what I want to share.
Thank you.
Experience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fred Njaya, working for Bundle Fisheries in Malawi. My question goes to Richard. It was interesting to hear a story on Gambian fisheries. I remember in 1990s, we hosted a delegation from Gambia, on fisheries co-management. In your presentation, I saw something like exclusive user rights. I might have missed something. Can you elaborate on that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, okay.
Just 1 more question and then we wrap up.
2 more questions.
My name is Evans Kwesia Rizzi. I'm from Ghana. My question goes to Richard. It's more of seeking clarification. Richard, when you were making your presentation, you did indicate that the sole fish populations, they migrate between countries. And well, I am a fish biologist. Soulfish is a demersal fish. You expect that looking at the nature of its body, it's so flat, the locomotion is limited. So I want to find out if there has been any study to establish that these fish populations indeed migrate between countries. And I'll be happy to get the findings of that study. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Program Director. Yes, very shortly. Just in the Gambia, I know that also, I don't know if it's part of the ECOWAS, that if there is the free movement of fishers between states within the ECOWAS, Senegalese fishers being able to fish in the Gambia and the Ghana, and also that how that came about, because that is something that we as fishers in the SADC would also like to have. And then also to Kenyan is that if the offshore is rather, it's maybe not underexploited, but rather underreported, because we know that these foreign fleets that come into our countries often catch much more than what they should be catching, as is the case maybe between Madagascar and China, and then being paid 1 cent a kilogram for premium fish, which is never to the betterment of small-scale fishers and their lives. So.
Yeah, so amazing. Thank you so much. So I think for the sake of time, I'm going to really share more as one-on-one, but I would like to just share on the issue of exclusive users' rights. So it just means small-scale fishers have the power to be able to coordinate activities within their fishery. So that is first of the type as in Africa, and then that's why they are trying to also train fishers as a Ghana for them to be able to help through the co-management, include some of these laws. So it's just a law that ensures small-scale fishers have the power to be able to choose how to manage their own fishery. So that is just the whole big concept about exclusive users' rights. So, but I'll be happy to really talk more on this one-on-one during the break. Thank you.
I think maybe the last question, we have two Alios here from the Gambia and Senegal. Maybe they can answer that one. Do we have a free movement of fishers in the region? Alio?
No, it's fine. I think we can have that discussion outside.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much to my speakers and the discussion. This was really a great plenary session. Thank you once again.
And thank you to Kathy and Esther for doing this online as well. Okay, good job. Now let's have a break just outside, and we'll come back here and start the next session at 11 o'clock. Thank you.